2, 1. Hey, we're live, Jim. Yay!
Wow. That was quite a solo.
Everybody plays guitar. Nobody plays clarinet. Right, Ava?
Yeah.
Well, welcome again. Somebody asked me the other day, when are we gonna do another show? This is not a show. This is our office, and in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we just usually have a lot of friends that stop by during the day, and if they do, we just say, hey, let's just do a little online stuff for our friends and neighbors. It's kind of like overheard at the Halsey headquarters. So today we really have some interesting people that came by, and Tate Wittenberg is our main person today because he's in town shortly. Larry White, Ava,
Hi.
Marky Mark, okay. Mark Ward, Alaskan Maddie, and so we're going to talk today. I was particularly glad that Tate stopped by because he is a filmmaker that is from Tulsa and he spends some time here, but he lives in California where his main work is. And tell us about your project. I know about Raising Cain, but tell us, what is this?
So, a definitive history documentary on the history of Cain's Ballroom, which you know quite well, and we're very thankful to get an interview from you and some of your artists that you've managed over the years: Roy Clark, Wanda Jackson.
You got Dwight too, didn't you?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're still supposed to hook that up in Los
Dwight Yoakam?
Angeles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got Dwight Twilley.
To have Dwight Twilley. So we're highlighting a lot of the Oklahoma musicians and just the wealth of talent that's come out of Oklahoma as well.
Well, Oklahoma's become such an important, it always has been important, and they talk about the music scene and the Tulsa sound and all that goes on. But Cain's Ballroom, from the beginning of time, has been the epicenter of everything that has sprouted and grown from there.
It's true.
Well, what is Raising Cain? What is a biography, so to speak, of Cain's Ballroom?
We're kind of going to go like we're just now about to enter post-production. So we're kind of taking it like by the decades and kind of highlight decades and, who was on stage, the biggest acts that were on stage during the different decades and the different genres that have gone through, have been prevalent on the stage at Cain's, starting with obviously the music of Bob Wills, who put the place on the map in the 30s, and then his brother Johnny Lee, who took over the broadcast. And yeah, I mean, Bob was selling more albums than anyone at the time when they were broadcasting from the stage there at Cain's, and the signal was reaching coast to coast. And
I happened to be one of those visitors when he was broadcasting. As a young kid, I was about Ava's age. That time I went down there. My dad and actually W.G. Skelly took me down there to hear Bob Wills play a noontime broadcast. Mm-hmm. And before that, it was the KVOO in the Phil Tower.
Right.
Then I went up to some of those broadcasts because Mr. Skelly owned KVOO,
mm-hmm.
and my uncle was an associate of his. So that was some interesting history. And then all of my artists at one time or another have played there. Wanda Jackson, Hank Thompson, Roy Clark, Merle Haggard. We did a tribute to Bob Wills
mm-hmm.
there in '86 that Larry Schaefer was involved with, and Larry said, well, let's put together, I think I told this in our interview
mm-hmm.
there, let's get together and recreate Bob's noontime broadcast with Merle Haggard. And we did. That was in 1986, I think. And Merle, I remember him telling his band members on the bus, he said, we're not Merle Haggard, the strangers today. We're Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys.
Yeah.
And they went out, and the whole program was Bob Wills' music. Merle was Bob. And O.W. Mayo was still alive at that time and came down and emceed it. Did you get O.W. Mayo?
We did not. We did get the late Merle Haggard, though, mm-hmm. and he spoke about doing the rebroadcast.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, as well as when you spoke about it too. And then I don't know that they ever performed at Cain's together, but Roy told us a story. He and Bob had interactions together, as well as I know that Wanda Jackson had played with Bob Wills at one point in time too.
Yeah.
So there's the whole chronology of these people is what we're kind of showing as well, and really the history of rock and roll we're showing through. I mean, Bob Wills is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then there's a reason for that. He kind of, to me, he was the first rock star. Not everyone sees that, but we've got a couple historians, kind of saying, if it wasn't for what Bob was doing on the stage at Cain's, bringing the drums to the Western music, and then it was like a direct lineage to rockabilly as well.
As a sidebar, you mentioned Larry Schaefer, and for the audience, those who don't know, Larry Schaefer owned Cain's for how many years?
He had it from 76 to 1970.
Well, a couple of decades probably, and booked bands like U2 and Van Halen and the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
He just really put Cain's on the modern day map, if you will. And anyone out there who's watching this can go to raisincanemovie.com and watch the trailer that Roy Clark is featured in, and Larry Schaefer, who has some really great stories from Cain's. And we were actually out there at his ranch yesterday with Ava, who was blowing up lots of fireworks.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I'd have to say it's long overdue for somebody to come along and encapsulate the rich history that Cain's had. Tate Wittenberg and Larry White. Oh, it'll be an ongoing thing, but it was interesting. You can go overseas. There was a time I borrowed Larry's Cain's ballroom jacket, and I was in Germany, and it's amazing the amount of people that recognize Cain's in various other countries of the world. It bleeds over into the rich talent that Tulsa has, and with Jim Halsey, who handled well over 40 well-known artists, this has been really a hallmark town for music, and I'm glad that you're producing a film that's going to tell the story.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Mark Ward, for your insight into that. When we talk about Cain's too, and you mentioned when you're overseas, when we were in the Soviet Union, even, I had people, of course, at that time, Roy and the Oak Ridge Boys were there, and they had played most everywhere in America. But people would come up and say, tell us about Cain's Ballroom in Tulsa. They knew we were from Tulsa. And in that society of not a lot of Western information went on, they knew about Cain's Ballroom. So thank you for doing this.
Of course.
It really accentuates.
My pleasure. It's been a pleasure, and it's been a long ride, a long haul already, but we're aiming at wrapping the film up by the end of this year is our goal.
Woo.
Jim, we have another visitor, Tamara Loxton Hawkinson, just walked in.
Hi, Tamara,
There's another camera. Tamara, come sit down.
All right.
Charles Tuberville, you just kind of touched on. I wondered about a release date for Raising Cain. So
there's not a release date really
But yeah, the
solid,
Indiegogo.
but yes, that's we haven't mentioned this yet. We are we're wrapping up. We're putting together right now, finishing up a Indiegogo campaign that we're going to be launching soon for completion funds. As documentaries can be a bit difficult to fund sometimes. I mean, we've got quite a bit of money in it already, but it's time that we're about to go into post-production, which is really the most expensive part of the filmmaking process for us. It will be, and so the Indiegogo campaign should be launching here within probably 2 weeks.
Again, though, to get a taste of what this film is going to be like, I urge everybody to go to raisincanemovie.com and check out the trailer.
Sidebar, Charles Tuberville is a talented guitarist who has appeared at Cain's on numerous times.
All right. Well, when you say release it, will you release it theatrically, or will this be released on a PBS type of?
We'd like to get, probably a week in select cities. I would think Tulsa, Los Angeles,
Of course,
maybe
it's New York,
Austin,
Texas
Texas,
City,
New York,
yeah.
a few major cities. And then, worldwide distribution nowadays, is basically online,
Yeah.
So I think I could see this, it's very, it's very Americana, the whole thing, and I could see it doing well in places like Germany or Japan, the UK.
Film festivals.
Film festivals, definitely looking forward to that. But yeah, I've lived in Los Angeles now. I've been in California 22 years. I was in Oklahoma 22 years, and I just turned 45 the other day. So, and I was in New York. I was in New York.
Alien abduction.
So I've been in Oklahoma and California the same amount of time now.
Is there music in this as well as your interviews?
Yes, we've got there's just a whole wealth of different stuff that we've got, just a lot of random stuff, but lots of Bob Wills. Bob will be highlighting the career of Bob Wills, who his 5 years, like Merle Haggard said, his years that weren't very long there before he went to Hollywood, but they were his most productive years musically, really.
But then Johnny Lee kept that.
And then Johnny Lee came along and took it over, kept it going, for much longer than Bob did. And to me, the whole thing with Bob being the first rock star, to me, it was neat how like Elvis Presley, who actually covered some of Bob's songs, but he preceded him going to Hollywood, and all of in Bob's films he was playing the fiddle, and then Elvis did the same thing, but he was playing guitar in all of his movies. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, after living in California and going to many of the most famous, I've been to all the famous venues there, and most of them in New York as well, and other places in the world. But it's just wow. I thought about it one day, and it was Cain's really has the history of Cain's Ballroom is so much richer than most of these other music venues that everyone knows. Everyone knows of CBGBs, everyone knows of Grand Ole Opry. Those are in people's, everyone knows those. But I would like for Cain's to be in everyone's vernacular, like a CBGB's or a Grand Ole Opry, once this film is out.
It's interesting you mentioned the Grand Ole Opry, because I've been involved with country music all my life, and there was actually a great distinction early on when I first started between what we know as country music today and Western swing, and it was as different as playing jazz or rock and roll or anything else, because the Bob Wills, the Hank Thompsons, the Leon McAuliffes of the day had a whole different genre of music that they played, and they played primarily for dances, not shows. And so when they did, they had these fantastic bands of fantastic musicians that played a combination of country music with country instruments in a version of swing that you heard from the big bands like Woody Herman and Stan Kenton and the Dorsey Brothers and all that.
Glenn Miller. Benny Goodman.
And then at Grand Ole Opry, of course, there was the time Bob Wills brought the drums to the Opry, and everyone was like, "What are those? What are you doing with that on the stage here? You can't do that." And they were like, "Well, we're leaving." And
it's like Bob Dylan with the electric guitar.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Well, I think it's great that Oklahoma, and in particular the Tulsa area, has such a rich history. And with the Woody Guthrie Center that has been now established here and well accredited, and with the Bob Dylan archives coming in, it puts what you might call the good housekeeping seal of approval, at least on the academic side of what we're doing here. And then all the Tulsa sound musicians, they go back from the early days of Bob Wills and Leon McAuliffe up to Leon Russells of the world that helped, and Hank Thompson that was here for a long time too, and Roy Clark, who's lived here 40 years now.
So yeah, we're highlighting all of the the Tulsa sound movement as well. And I mean, Canes was like an incubator for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I was particularly interested in when I heard you were doing this and followed it, and Tamara has kept us involved, and you guys interviewed me on the thing. But the interesting part of what we worked with in our company in building our artists was in the visual side of it, as well as the audio side too. So what you're doing visually has been something that we believed in building artists for a long time. It's that visual object.
Your son Sherman was at the forefront of that.
And Sherman Halsey
really.
did so much visually. We did all of those early Oak Ridge Boys specials for Feed the Children, and then he eventually
The
did
Dwight Yoakam stuff was just
the Dwight
incredible.
Yoakam and the Tim McGraws of the world. But Sherman also did a series from Las Vegas called The Oak Ridge Boys Live from Las Vegas. It was 15 one-hour specials, and they highlighted the music. Well, he was so involved with the Oak Ridge Boys, he conceived the show from Las Vegas, and part of in building an artist is not only what you hear record-wise and what they do in person, but also if you can get that visual image and be seen by millions of people on the Tonight Show or any of those type of shows, it just helps solidify the popularity of that artist. So what you're doing with this is going to be a real important place in history for not only music, country music, western swing music, but Tulsa in general.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you know the.
Thank you for being in the project.
Yeah. And we have Alaskan Maddie here today, who are new artists on the block here that are getting their start in Tulsa, Broken Arrow, and so the history of music.
I thought I turned this off. Pardon me.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. It might be important.
I
Go
said,
ahead and answer.
no, I'm gonna make sure it's off. It just starts itself up.
Larry and his devices over here.
Power
It's
off.
singing your own.
One more time. Okay.
Mine went off during the interview of Roy Clark, so. You know.
Yeah.
With all the information that they've got coming out in this film, there's obviously, especially with Maddie and the new crew coming on board, like a part two. I mean, there's a wealth of history still there.
You know,
Well,
like-
and we filmed J.D. McPherson,
Yeah,
who
some of
is
the newer
a fairly
ones.
new artist from Broken Arrow, Tulsa area. We filmed him at Canes.
And
So
there's kind of
Performance. His
Yes,
performance.
the entire
his
performance,
with him.
yes.
There's also like the lineage, some of the Tulsa Sound rockabilly
Mhm.
stuff that John D. LeBon, who was a big fan, JD was a big fan of,
Mhm.
and
And we have to share that because of filming J.D. McPherson, my cousin, who's a producer at Disney, was with me, and I asked her to help me do some of the,
Releases,
artist releases. She asked the.
She was
So
really serious
because,
about
yeah,
that.
so because of the Canes documentary, we
Good
actually
booking.
have a wedding.
we
In there.
Well,
helped out with the love connection.
Yeah.
Well, the visual medium is always so important. A lot of people think that it just happens, and we know that you spent several years on this and a lot of devoted time to not only putting it together, making it happen, and Tamara's been involved with you, and a lot of other people too. It's going to be important when it comes out for the credibility further of Tulsa's importance in the music scene, and the Dr. Bob Blackburn at the Oklahoma History Center, has worked tirelessly to get the OK Pop or Oklahoma Pop Culture Museum up and going.
It's going to be awesome.
So it's just
Incredible.
one more thing
Good
that
news on
adds
that.
to
Yeah.
the credibility of Tulsa. Now the girls, Alaska and Maddie, what we're doing with them is along the visual. They write songs, and we're going to get a record deal, a record contract for them, and that. But visually, we feel that they're as important as personalities as they are in performing on songs. So they have a show with Coach Barry Switzer.
Oh, yeah.
Called Coach's Corner, and they do the halftime, and we show amateur, or not necessarily amateur, but music videos of Oklahoma performers.
Yeah, excellent.
Right.
So
Great. Well, that's
When is that
Desi and
available?
Cody,
When can you
video.
see that?
In the fall.
Definitely.
In the fall?
They're great. We played a show at South by Southwest with a bunch of Tulsa artists about 2 years ago. They played at it too.
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Which one was that? That was the
Tulsa Boom Factory.
that was the first Boom Factory,
Yeah,
right?
that was the first one.
Yeah.
So Abby Kern has done a good job.
Abby's great.
Yeah.
We all love Abby.
She's
And
great.
I was driving to Austin and saw a great, huge billboard of you two that
Really?
you were playing at one of the casinos.
Yeah,
Cool.
they put the
Yes.
billboards up those casinos.
Mhm, they do.
Really.
And
It was
Thursday,
very impressive.
one of the things that the Oklahoma History, under Dr. Bob Blackburn, they have a number of museums around the state, and they have expertise in the management of these museums, and they've made an association with the Will Rogers Memorial Museum in Claremore to.
I grew up.
Okay, right, you did. And so Thursday, they're going to be making that formal association known, and that Jennifer Rogers Etcheberry, who is the great granddaughter of Will, is coming in for that. And Alaskan Matter, you got to go up and sing national anthem and Oklahoma, how appropriately.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, what other projects have you got on the drawing board, or that you want to talk about?
That I want to talk about. A couple of things have really kind of come out of working on the Canes documentary. Some of the interviews that we've done went on to other things. Like we've ended up working with the band Ministry a little bit from the interview that we did with Al Jorgensen for the project, which was one of the shows that really blew me away when I was growing up and going to Canes. Was like the band Ministry there was just still like one of the most incredible shows to me. Or the Call, who were Scott Music from
From
Tulsa.
Tulsa. I went to high school with
And
Scott.
that was one of my favorite shows growing up, going to Canes. But you know, I don't even really want to hardly talk about any other project right now. Like there are a couple of really cool things coming out of this one project, but I just kind of want to stay focused on this one. But it's like, until this was done, it's like I almost don't even really want to talk about other ones. But,
What's the best way to follow this? Would this be on Facebook? How do you...
Yeah, RaisingCaneMovie.com is our website. And Facebook is just Raising Cane Movie, I believe, also, yeah.
/.
Oh, another thing I was going to say, you know, just we're trying to capture some of these interviews that were, you know, that of people that are kind of dying off, and like, and trying to save some of that history. I mean, there's 3 people have passed. Another Tulsa favorite. What am I spacing his name?
It's going to be a great time capsule.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's basically
A couple of the
90
original
plus
Playboys.
years. Yeah, we've got a couple of original Playboys.
And they're in the trailer, which
Yeah,
is so
they're
much fun.
hilarious.
They're great.
Yeah, they're
And then
hilarious.
Tommy Alsa.
Mm-hmm.
It's great too. What was I thinking of?
Plus just the history of
But
the
just
whole
like 90 plus years.
building, the, you know, how it developed,
Yeah,
how it
last
went
night.
from Western swing to kind of Austin country rock to then
Yeah, the whole space
Yeah,
cowboy era.
yeah.
And,
In the Freedom,
And then-
you
space, yeah.
in the Freedom, you mentioned that a lot of bands had their start at Canes, like even Van Halen and the Police, before anybody
Yeah.
had really seen
You
or
too.
heard.
You too.
Or
You
you
too,
too.
yeah.
Had seen them before. People like R.C. Bradley and Larry Schaefer were
yeah, I
giving
mean,
them the
R.C.
stage.
Bradley really, he kind of, without R.C. with what he did and laid the groundwork, I don't think that Schaefer would have been able to come in and
Yeah.
do what he did. And then R.C. was such a character too. Obviously, I didn't get
Yeah,
to
he
know
worked for
him,
us for a while.
but he worked with you and with Dwight, I guess.
The Red Hot Chili Peppers and Faith No
And-
More did a show there, and the weather was really bad. I think they have 28 people in attendance.
Yeah. But yeah, the 3 guys who took it over from Marie, who had it for just a few months, made the biggest change that allowed
Jim Edwards, Ed Thornton,
yes, and
Jeff
RC
Nix,
and RC,
and RC
yeah,
Bradley.
allowed, kind of made that transition that then brought kids across the tracks.
Yeah.
You know, on the wrong side of the tracks.
I used to
Those
love.
those were all RC taglines that are what really developed Canes at that time in the late 60s, early 70s. Well, it was the early 70s, because they had all come back after graduating from high school at Holland Hall in Tulsa, and that's what got it started. That then allowed Larry Schaefer to take it over and really then promote it the way he did. But had it not, and those three guys are often left out of history. A lot of times it'll just go from it, being a run-down Western swing facility to Larry Schaefer, but there was that bridge.
We got great
There was a
interviews with all
bridge
of them
that
as
was
well, so.
really important there.
When was that built?
It was built in
23, I think.
yeah, and it was originally
It was
Knew them, and he'd take a chance or have that foresight to do that, and then they'd come back around and remember that, and then either give Larry good deals or things like that, but just play their hearts out, and they just love playing Canes. Or times when people would.
I mean, the police came back. He could have booked them at a big venue. They were like, no, we want to play Canes again.
Exactly.
For a little bit of money.
And Elvis Costello.
Elvis Costello loves to play.
And
He's
today,
always comes
Jack
back.
White opened his last tour at Canes. The last two tours,
And the last
moved here to
last one,
town.
I think he. was the only
Jack
place he
White
played
moved to
twice.
town.
Yeah, and then Jack White likes
property here
kids so
anyway.
much he bought a house in Tulsa. He's living here now. I don't know if we're supposed to say that.
But so we're just trying to save a lot of the history that it's just like life is a fragile thing. A lot of people are. Another one I wanted to mention, Clyde Stacy is another one that he was very early Tulsa sound. I'm glad that we got an interview with him. He's passed on.
And we
well.
have interviewed people who have come to the Bob Wills birthday events, and have great interviews from people who talk about their parents met, grandparents met, Bob Wills dances. They met. They come every year. They bring their grandchildren. It's pretty amazing. I mean and so we've gotten a lot of great interviews with people who nobody knows who they are, but Canes and Bob Wills had a huge impact on their lives.
It has such a great history. I know as we lay out the Oak Ridge Boys schedule every year, and they play mainly concerts and PACs and festivals and performing arts places like that. But every now and then we think, well, maybe we'll take a 5 or 6 day tour of just some of the eclectic clubs that normally you wouldn't expect an Oak Ridge Boys to go to. And we've discussed coming into Canes several times because we played the State Fair here. We're playing the State Fair again this year in Tulsa. And then we play the Hard Rock Casino. But it would be interesting to go in a place like Canes that has so much history with everybody there. And the guys are all for it and that, but it just hasn't worked out yet. But we probably will. Maybe we'll do it in conjunction when your movie comes out.
There you go.
That's a great idea.
Perfect.
There was a great film that the band Wilco did, a documentary called Ashes of American Flags. And it all started off at Canes. And I think it was 5 different legendary venues in America that they played at. But it all started off at Canes, and they were, there was some interesting footage of them before they actually started playing and stuff, just saying how, this place is like the last of the Mohicans. It's like, there's not many places like it. I mean, Willie Nelson, there's a great quote, how did that go? But Willie Nelson just saying that, to stand under that sign with the Bob Wills on that stage and, with all the photos and everything around it, and that kind of hall, that there's really not many of them left in America at all like that.
No, and it's a multiple venue now. There other things that go on there too,
Oh, of
lectures and
course.
exhibits and things of that kind.
Stephen King.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
The doctor did a beautiful restoration on the building.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Dr.
that had
Rogers.
been in there
Yeah.
before remember it with the suspended
Mm-hmm.
ceiling, kind of like walking into an unair-conditioned shoe box. But it had all that character of
Oh, yeah.
Keynes and
Terrible
just-
bed, no plumbing.
It just seems so much more open
It
now.
was-
When like
yeah.
you were
With
in
the
a
best
crowd in
music
there
on the
before, it was
planet.
almost a little
Yeah.
claustrophobic.
Well, and there's air
Short
conditioning
lived,
now.
right?
Air conditioning and
Oh,
good
yeah.
bed and plumbing.
Well, the Rogers family bought that, and they did extensive remodeling
Oh,
and
yeah.
change. They didn't change the look or the feel of it at all.
Right.
But let's say they upgraded it to where
Mhm.
it's comfortable now, and it's a major venue for every type of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they had this like motocross, like it was like a bike
yeah.
race and it
Inside.
does a circle.
There was also all you can eat steak. It was like all you can eat steak / motocross inside Cane's. That's the weirdest thing ever.
Well,
But-
Cane's-
Well, and mud wrestling.
Yeah, I mean
you
it's
know.
always
Yeah. Cane's consistently
I know that
ranks in the top 10 of
Mhm.
American venues
Of that size,
ticket-
yes.
That size.
What's interesting
And
that
ticket
Tulsa
sales.
does as a whole, the BOK Center, there's always 9 or 10 of all the top arena
Mhm.
grosses in America.
Right?
Yeah, and
Right, I
Cane's
think
is
we're-
right in there with its size venue.
Yeah, I
being
think
in the top
we're
10.
52nd in population as far as the city itself is
Mhm.
concerned, but it's up there. It is an important entertainment venue now with all the casinos in here that are bringing in state-of-the-art and big performers, and now with the BOK Center and with Kane's Ballroom. I think that the Woody Guthrie Center and the Bob Dylan Archival Center really adds to the credibility
really
of
does.
Tulsa
Mhm.
as being a
Really.
major music and entertainment center.
Definitely.
Indeed.
Definitely.
Yes.
Well, and you can quote Elvis Costello's quote from his dad, who said to
Oh, yeah.
him when he told him he wanted to be a musician, he said, "Well, maybe one day you'll grow up to be good enough to play at Kane's Ballroom."
In Tulsa, Oklahoma.
In Tulsa.
And that,
Oklahoma,
you can
that's
actually
right.
see that quote at
That's
raisincanemovies.com
That's right.
in the
You can.
trailer.
All this brings us around to the point that the more education we have and know about this music and entertainment business, the more successful that we can be. So part of what we're doing now, besides our major interest, which is managing and keeping the Oak Ridge Boys on the road for 150 concerts a year and around the world, and Roy Clark doing his one-man show, is the fact that we have launched a music and entertainment business program online. It's called HalseyInstitute.com, where you can sign up for it and take this at the leisure of your home or work or anything else, and you can plug into it. Right now, we have 3 classes in what we call the fast track course, and they're 27 lessons. But we're expanding that. We're doing more. Nathan Gray's in charge of that project, and we're going to start our bricks and mortar this fall at Bacone College down in Muskogee. So
Right.
we think that all of this is part and parcel. The importance of what we're doing. It's not just having a good place to go see entertainment and good shows, but the educational process is how all this happens and how it's put together and what makes it successful. And we teach that.
You're in-
And by doing it online, it's accessible to anyone in the world.
Right.
And actually, I believe your first brick and mortar is in another country, is it not?
Yes, it's in Brazil.
Mhm.
We're doing our course down there. And Nathan brought that to us where he went to school. And so it's very, we have other situations that are going to be opening up that we'll talk about later. But we're just proud to be part of the educational system in music and entertainment business and doing it from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, your institute also taps into all the wealth of contacts that you have in the business.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Mark, because we have probably 60 of the best interviews and lectures that we have that are leaders in the industry that actually Sherman, my son, interviewed, and we interviewed together, and we make that part and parcel of ours. So it's not just us telling you about it, it's all these industry leaders from William Morris and the CAA and Capitol and Universal and Gaither Music and So I find it interesting myself
Yep.
to look at. I have a great pristine interview with Jim Halsey, who was president of Capitol Records for many years, and actually rediscovered a lot of artists that came on there. But then he was Kenny Rogers' manager for the last 20 years too, and he really tells it like it is. So people like that are part and parcel. We'll probably use bits and pieces of what we're doing here, if you don't mind, with your permission, to show to some of our classrooms.
Completely.
Well, I thank you for all coming by today, and we do this. This is not a show. This is just people coming by the office, and we turn the cameras on and have a little informal visit. It's not scripted. We don't really know what we're going to talk about, except we knew we were going to talk about Raising Cain today. And
Appreciate it.
And Larry, we're going to have you on, and we're going to get more insight into what and where you've been and what you're doing now.
I just want to say my favorite part of any day is when I come out to your offices.
It's great here.
That's exactly right.
Well, hey, you probably didn't know somebody in the room just had a birthday. So we throw surprises in all the time.
There you go.
Ava Wittenberg.
This girl over here, Ava Wittenberg, did. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ava. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
All right.
Cut the cake.
That's the first flame you've seen in 24 hours that hasn't blown up.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to everybody for coming by. And
Thank you, Jim.
we don't have this on schedule, but next time you'll hear from us, we'll have somebody else will give us